Hi everyone, you are watching the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel and you are looking at a totally clean surface of my work table. This is a work table. I have another workbench, but this is one I've been using here lately because I wanted to take advantage of the natural light that I get in this particular room. I wanted to show this to you because occasionally I will reset the table, so to speak. Because eventually I have so many of my tools out everywhere, I just need to put everything back, clean up, and have a fresh blank slate for my next machine, which I'm going to introduce you to. So I'm going to put down, this is a board. It's kind of like, it's not really masonite, it's some sort of fiber board. And I have that, and then of course I actually also add my little pad here. Occasionally I'll get this thing washed, but this is a, it feels like terry cloth. It's actually some sort of drip pad for something. I got it in a kitchenwares department of a store. Anyway, that is the basis for what I'm going to show you today. And I want all of you, as I set this machine onto the bench, because it is the next machine that I will be tinkering with, I want you to tell me, what is your first guess? As soon as you see this carry case, what is the first machine model that you think lives in there? The reason I'm asking you all this is because, you know, there are times when, if you're used to doing something, if you're familiar with, for example, in my case, vintage sewing machines, and you've seen hundreds of them, or maybe you've just seen hundreds of them on the internet or on blogs somewhere, you kind of get certain assumptions. You think you know what it is that you're going to find. So this is it's a plastic case. It is this two-tone mint green color. And if you look closely at it, I'm going to give you a clue. This case is not as wide as those for full-size sewing machines. So that's the biggest clue I can give you. It is for a sewing machine that is 3/4 the width of an average machine. Now, this case is in extraordinary condition. It has a few soiling marks here, but I mean, you know, I've got these brass clasps that are just, I mean, there's no corrosion on them. They're shiny. Come over here, and the brass clasp is undone. Now up top, we also have some brass accents which are darker, and I don't know if they were intentionally that way, or maybe they weren't sealed with a lacquer like some brass is. So, what do you think it is? I know what I thought it was when I first saw it, but it is a 3/4 machine. If you guess that it was, well, to be honest, when I first saw that case, I thought I was looking at a Singer 185. Those of you who know some of the vintage Singer models will know that the Singer 185 or the 185K, for example, I've restored a number of them and shown them on this channel, and they are the descendant, or basically an updated version of the Singer 99. For those of you who are new to vintage machines, the Singer 99, which was in production for many decades, many decades, that machine is called a 3/4 machine because it is 3/4 of the width, which the same as this machine here, of a Singer 66. The Singer 66 shares virtually all of its mechanical design with the 99. So, you know, they took the 66 and said, let's make a smaller version, or less wide version, and we'll call it the 99. And so those machines were in production for a long time. Eventually, the Singer 99 was updated with a new shape to its body, a color that looked just like this, and they changed the bobbin winder. And there's a couple other changes I'll mention in a moment. But basically, that's it. Singer was so wonderful about keeping mechanical designs in production. So imagine my surprise when I opened up this case and I see a Spartan. Well, what is a Spartan? Do any of you know? We're going to talk about this machine today, and we're going to talk about this specific example today and where I got it. So let's dive in. The first thing I'm going to do is to carefully, gently unwrap this cord from around the machine. And I am always careful with my machines, but I have to tell you, honestly, I've had machines in the past that had lovely paint. I mean, just, gorgeous paint. This has to be one of the most mint-looking machines I have ever seen, period. I'm looking around. I'm still trying to find where would that be? Where would I, are there any nicks or scratches? So far, I haven't found any. Maybe we'll find some. So that is incredible. This machine is also, in addition to being in the, say, 5% of machines that I've ever had that look almost perfect aesthetically. The other thing about this machine is that it is only one of the 5% of machines that I didn't purchase. As I mentioned to you all in my encouraging those to visit my Buy Me a Coffee page, 95% of every machine, of all the machines that I ever get to restore, I have to purchase and pay for. This one was given to me by one of my clients, someone who lives here locally, who has purchased multiple machines from me or brought their own machines for me to do restorations for. And that particular person said, well, they could have donated to the channel Buy Me a Coffee, but instead they gave me a machine and said, here, see if you can get this to work. It has some kind of problem, and I see threads. We're going to have to untangle that together, and we'll kind of approach it. We'll pretend like, maybe you got a machine like this. So that is what was behind this case. So we'll be taking a look at this machine and going through it, because remember, as I've mentioned other times, beauty is only skin deep, and so just because the machine looks great doesn't mean it runs. You may see a machine, oh, this machine is awesome, it's so mint, I'm sure it'll run fine. No, no, that is not the case. And so I want to show you all in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the Spartan, and is it any different than the Singer 99 or the 99K? It is, but only a little. Back in the day when consumers purchased items, durable goods, I think they would sometimes be called. Maybe it was an appliance. Maybe it was a sewing machine. Even an automobile, something that large of a purchase, what you often would see is you always had price points, right? It's not like everyone could afford the nicest thing. In fact, most people couldn't. And so you had different price points to hopefully offer a product that various consumers of various income levels could afford. And Singer was no different. So just like the White Company did with the turquoise domestic 1514 model that I've had on my channel recently, the White Company, of course, did not want to lower the prices or have a value-based, value-priced machine in their main brand. They wanted to protect the image of that brand. They would sell the domestic, which was basically the same machine, but they could sell it for less and not have any degradation of the value of the brand. It gets into marketing speak. Singer was under the same kind of pressure that the White Manufacturing Company was, because when you get into the 1950s and 60s, you are talking about a lot of competition in the space for sewing machines. Many of the Japanese manufacturers are exporting them to North America and other parts of the world. And if you want to compete with them, you can't really compete with the cost of labor, because labor is actually not expensive in Japan in that time. So what can you do? You can actually offer your product but you'll put a different name on it, and maybe you change the features. Because in the past, consumer items were largely, when they were made with quality, you didn't get less quality when you paid less, you got fewer features. And most of us still understand that idea. So, speaking of features, can you guys tell, is there anything missing here? Let's take a look. We have, of course, machine. We have our tension assembly, just like the 99K. We have a stitch length adjustment, just like the 99K or the 99s of this period. Earlier ones didn't even have this. And then we have back tacking, right? We have back tacking. We have, of course, the little thread guide down here for winding a bobbin, just like you do on the 99. And what else do we have? Well, let's look over here for a moment. Take a look at this. Did any of you catch this? I'll zoom in and maybe it will be easier for you to spot. Take a look at the bobbin winder. At first glance, it kind of looks like it spins lovely. It looks like, sort of like a 99, but I don't see the little piece of steel that would hold the bobbin down. And I'm going to have to investigate. This is my first Spartan, by the way, so I don't know. Maybe is it missing, or maybe it didn't come with one. I'm not sure. Going to find out. Let's see. Let's keep looking. Now, there is something else I noticed that's a little different. Let me zoom back out here, and let's lower the cam down so you guys can see a little bit better. Take a look at the needle plate and the bobbin plate. Needle plate, bobbin plate. Well, these almost look like they're almost like anodized in some way. I believe they're steel. They continue to be steel. We'll check it with the magnet. But one of the things that the Singer 185 added that the 99s in prior decades did not have, they added built-in engraved markings for your seam allowance, which is a wonderful thing that sewers have probably been asking for many, many decades. And what's great about it is you don't have to bother and mess around with tape and do things that harm the finish of the machine. All right, what else is not here? Do you guys notice? Think back to the Singer 99. It's black, but what's not there? I don't see any decals. Do you? Now I wonder, was this a cost-saving measure? Because I believe that the black paint also had a clear coat, just like those that had the decals on the bed. So I wonder, do you think this was cost cutting or not? Because if this machine was in production at the same time as the 185 was, and I don't know that for sure, then remember the 185 with its green body, it did not have decorative decals on the bed either. Of course, it said Singer, and it had that information. And by the way, if you're still wondering whether this was actually made by the Singer Company, I'll show it to you right there. It says the Singer Manufacturing Company, made in Great Britain. They might have also produced the Spartan in New Jersey in Singer's legendary American factory as well. I don't know. But we are going to keep watching and looking. So there we go. We've got decals, not there, right? Bobbin winder, a little different. And we have an updated, which is actually an upgrade if you think about it. We have the seam allowance markings here, which is a very nice thing to have. They could have just painted them on, but they knew better. They knew this would be a wear area if someone had ever actually used this machine, and I don't think they used it very much. I mean, it's just extraordinary. It really is hard to believe the condition of this machine. So, coming around, actually, I'm going to turn it back the other way. I want you all to see it from another side here. Let's go over on this side. So, I'm looking here at what I see is a motor, and I do not see any plates. Now, Singer, for many years, would rivet a plate to the metal, to the motor, so it couldn't be removed. that would show you information on the electrical qualities of the motor and whatever the specification was. Well, I don't see one here, and it would be a silly thing to put it on the inside. In fact, I can just tell with my fingers there's no plate there. I don't feel a sticker or a decal either. What do we see here, though? When we're trying to figure out what the date is, and I don't see a serial number on this machine like you can easily find on the Singer 99. So let's see what it says. It says Simanco, that was Singer's parts division. It has a catalog number, which does not have any relevance to us right now, to me anyway. And then voltage, 110, 120. AC motor, made in Canada. So we know that, at least with Japanese machines, that the machine body, the main part of the machine was often imported into North America if it was made in another country, and then all of the electricals were made in North America until we get into the 60s when the Japanese started making electrical equipment just for the North American market, because I don't think they use 110, 120 either. I'm not sure, but I don't think they do. So we know that the electricals were still being sourced in Canada. When this machine was imported into the US, they would have used very likely US sourced electrical products as well. The other curious thing is this bracket appears to be formed as one piece with this half of the engine I was about to say engine of the motor shell, which is really interesting. I'm trying to remember if I've ever seen that before. Normally, the bracket is bolted to the motor so you can separate them, but this one does not appear to be. Wow. Okay. I wonder why they don't 110, 120. I don't see amperage here, or maybe they do have it. Maybe it's just too small, and I'll have to look a little further. Okay, so now the motor. It's a Singer design motor. It has the little box down here below. Now, what do we know about the motors from this period? We know that, and you'll see this on the Singer 185, not necessarily the 99, but on the 185, the wires go straight into this housing underneath where the motor is. In fact, I think this is all, when you take these two shells apart off the motor, it literally goes, this section below is connected to the upper section. So the wires are put in there. So this tells me that this machine was made later, right? When I say later, I'm talking about like 1950s. And it kind of makes you wonder, maybe not everybody wanted the mint green Singer. Remember, people who had been sewing all their lives were used to sewing machines being black, just like most cars were. So not every customer was ready to change. They had to have something new for the maybe the younger customer who wanted to be more fashion forward, I guess. But here they were still making them in the classic black. Now, one more thing to point out. See if any of you. Well, there are two things. What do you folks see that's missing here? There's no light. Remember, on the Singer 99s, there is a threaded hole, just like you see right there. That is a threaded hole. And on many of the 99s, there's a little divot, but then you may also sometimes see the hole there. That is where the light fixture would go on the 99. The Spartan was sold without a light fixture. Now, that might seem odd, because you say, well, yeah, I know that fewer features were, common because you didn't pay as much. This was the lowest cost machine you could buy in a Singer dealership that was new. Well, yes, but I'm going to toss out some theories here. Pretend you're trying to sell this machine to someone. You have shown them all the other great machines. You've shown them just back here and back over there, you can see a Singer 201, which might have still been for sale at this point. The 201 would have been a lot more expensive for a number of reasons, but you tried to keep the customer in the higher price point, but at some point, they're going to walk out the door because they just know they're just too scared about, just too much money. So You bring them to the Spartan, and what does the customer get told? The first thing they might get told is, well, you know, sewing lights are not very bright, and that was true. Vintage sewing machine bulbs don't exactly flood the area with light, and they don't often. Some of you may disagree, and that's fine, but I find that they can be wanting sometimes for light because their wattage of the sewing bulbs in vintage machines was quite low. So another thing that the salesperson could have said, well, you know, you have a lamp at home, don't you just take the lamp and put it on? Because remember, this would have had to have been set up on a table somewhere because it didn't come in a sewing table, at least not standard. And so, or I wonder, do any of you know, I do not know this, I wonder if Singer had the light fixtures that they could sell, and you could say, well, you know what, why don't you buy it, take it, use your home lamp, and then later on when you get a raise, you can come back in and we can attach a light for you. Now, how that would be wired in would be curious, because I'm pretty sure that the light would have to have been wired into this same motor setup down here. But you can see all the options that the retailer was trying to give them, because these, I've emphasized to you all many times, these machines, like so many consumer items, were not cheap. You had to fork out a lot or make payments. Now, there's one other thing here, and I'm hoping this will help any of you who get a machine like this. This could apply. I'm trying to remember when I've had Singer 185s. By the way, there was another cost saving thing done here. When you got a Singer 99, you got that lovely grass cloth case it had sort of a deep red burgundy band around it, and that was standard with the Singer 99. Well, the Spartan didn't have that. You got the plastic case. And there's one other thing. I'm going to do something right quick. I want you guys to watch me. I'm going to lift up on the machine like this. Now, I just did that because normally you should not do that, because when a machine is in a carry case or in a table, there's often a little swivel piece over here. It's usually to the right, and it has a little thumb screw. You can turn it and snug it down. That is designed to keep a machine from bobbing up and down in the case. It is not something you would ever secure a machine for shipping. People have done that with ruinous consequences. But there's not any here. Look at that. I have gone around this entire machine. There is nothing holding the machine like you would normally expect. If any of you ever get a machine and for whatever reason you can't get it out of the case, there is a reason for this, and it's very important that you know this so you don't harm the case or the machine trying to strong arm it. And there's the answer. It has a nice wing nut so you can get to it with your fingers. Now I have to make sure that I don't let it go flying. I'm holding on to the machine. If you do this, do not let go of the machine when you're playing with this lovely wing nut securing bolt, or your machine will go flying. Not in a good way. All right, now I'm going to take it out of the case. And first we're going to look and see, what does the case look like? That's the inside. Now, for many of you, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, for many of you, if you've ever gotten one of these plastic cases, what often happens is that they have suffered, or they have been stored in parts and places where they probably shouldn't have been. And I'm just looking around to see if it's damaged or cracked. Yeah, this little line here, that's just dirt. There's no crack. Same down here, I think. Yeah. So very often the plastic is broken or broken off. This one even has all of its little support pieces The support pieces look like that, by the way. And I don't see any cracks. Sometimes the plastic is just broken. Sometimes it was, handled really roughly. And I have no idea. It says, to clean, use mild liquid dishwashing detergent in the same strength as used for dishes. Dry with damp cloth. That's all it says there. I don't see any information. I don't know if Singer made these. Singer used to make all of their own tables, and I think they're carry cases, but these I'm not sure. Maybe they did. I can't tell you. If any of you know, put it down there in the comments. Okay, so now we know what's going on with the case. By the way, this case is in such good condition, its rubber feet are still here and in one piece. Sometimes they're just gone or disintegrated. I don't know if you heard that, but I heard a little tap. Something fell on the floor, which often happens in these videos, but I wanted you to see this. This piece, this carry case has all of its pieces, but if you ever take your case, remember, be careful when you're carrying something because stuff can fall out of it. I'm just going to put it back there. It's not broken. It's just sitting there, and the weight of the machine normally holds it still. All right, let's put that over there. And let's take a look underneath the Singer Spartan. And when we do, what do we notice? Look at that. That is the same mechanism, guys, that you have under the Singer 185, of course, and the Singer 99. This is a design that Singer kept in production forever. It's one of the longest running designs that Singer had, the 15, the 66, and the 3/4 version, the 99. And it's a more economical cousin, the Spartan. So there you go. If you ever get a chance to purchase a Spartan, don't look down at it because it is a Singer and it came off the same assembly line. It's largely just a few features shy of a 99, but that would not really affect the sewing capacity at all. The light, yes, the light is probably the biggest thing, but hey, you know what? Unless you're a fan of vintage lights, I always restore and replace bulbs with vintage sewing machines. But honestly, many sewers have told me that they need more light, and so they have additional lighting. So, I mean, look at this. I swear, this is one of the 5 percentile machines. Not only is one of the only ones I've ever just been given, it's one of the only machines that I've ever seen that doesn't have a scratch. That is extremely rare. Spartans are not rare, but a machine in this condition is. And you know what it reminds me of? My first machine that you all will see in the photos. You see it in the photos on my home channel, and you see it on my new Buy Me a Coffee page. I have the Singer 301A in light beige oyster white, that two-tone Singer. It's the first machine that I ever restored. I often talk about it, especially when I get another one like that looks like it. But that machine was like this one. It was purchased for someone, or maybe someone got it and thought, oh, I'm going to sew, and they never sewed. They put it in the case, they stored it in a closet somewhere nice and dry, and it sat, and it sat, and it sat. And I really think this one did too. I'm so excited just to... Now, this machine doesn't run, and I'll have to check back with my client to see if they remember what was going on with it. Oh, there's one last thing. If you guys made it to the end of this video, I have got to show you this. Look at that. Now, I have mentioned in many videos before, the Singer 66, the Singer 99, the 185, all of those machines they share the same shuttle system. And the bobbin case, it's a floating type, right? And I've shown that before. Right now, it won't turn because I think we've got one heck of a thread nest. I've got to untangle that. We'll do that in a different video. But look, now that is what I have described to many of you, the red felt that belongs there. And this is the one I always say, don't pull that out of there. That's not lint. That's part of the design. And it's a wicking felt. Okay, and you would just add oil to it, and that allowed the race, which is this big ring below, it allowed that to rotate with the bobbin case in tandem with it, so that it would just move more quickly, more easily. It provides lubrication. Now you can still lubricate your machine if you don't have that. You just need to do it more often, because whenever you sew, you want oil to be on the top of the race ring there. But normally when I see these, if I see anything left, it's usually like a little piece of red fuzz or nub because it's worn away. I think that tells us all we need to know. I think whoever had this machine did not like sewing and put it away and didn't tell anybody, because if someone had purchased a very expensive product and then said, I really want this, and now I can sew and I can do all these things, and then maybe they just didn't. Who knows? I'm just offering up, just sort of spitballing a story there. But I tell you, there are signs, things you can look at a machine that tell you that nobody wanted to mess with this machine. Maybe it didn't work. Maybe there was something off with it and they just got frustrated and put it away. This is a tried and true design. There's nothing about a Spartan or a Singer 99. They are magnificently simple. One of my best friends got one from me as a housewarming present because they had never sewn before, and I knew it would be the perfect machine for them, and it was. So, wow. Well, I don't get to see things like this every day, guys. Given all of the machines that I've come across, I love them all. But every once in a while, you get this sort of diamond in the rough. Isn't it funny that Singer's least costly machine back in the day is actually one that I'm getting most excited about, and it's the condition. I mean, you can literally see, you can look, you can see I can see the reflection of my hand in this thing. I mean, it's just extraordinary. I hope that you find your sewing machine extraordinary. And if you have not subscribed, feel free to subscribe to this channel. And if you have not donated, please consider donating, because unlike this Spartan, 95% of my machines I do have to pay for. And it certainly helps in my efforts to rescue more of these amazing wonders of technology once upon a time. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.